cold outside, but the fire keeps us warm. We can spend the night beneath the mistletoe. It's cold outside, 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 outside. It's cold outside, outside, outside. Cold outside, outside, outside. It's cold outside, outside, outside. It's cold outside, but the fire keeps us warm. We can spend the night beneath the mistletoe. It's cold outside, 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 outside. It's cold outside.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. James Hicks here from Hicks New Media. Welcome to December 21st, Tuesday, December 21st. It's almost, if you don't have anything on your tree right now, it might be too late. Got to go get a gift card. Welcome to H&M Live. Today, got a really cool show today. Going to be talking to all of my peers in the content creation ecosystem. And folks that are either in the ecosystem or folks that are looking to get into the ecosystem. I've got Christian Karasevich here. The name rings a bell. You guys all know him if you're in this world. He is a social media manager. He's a content creator, podcast host. He's all the things, right? He also serves as the content marketing manager for StreamYard, which is a browser-based multi-streaming platform. I wanted to spend some time before the end of the calendar year talking with Christian about strategies, goals, ideas that we can all implement as we begin to think about our content delivery for the coming year. So if you got a question for us, make sure you put a Q in front of it so we can make sure to bubble that up. Otherwise, thank you guys all for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, Christian Karasevich. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good to see you. You always look so nice. I mean, you definitely have the
That's the
video
camera.
piece. Now, you see, well, I'm trying to give you some flowers here, but you always got at least that piece going on. So, talk to us a little bit. I want to get into it because I want to be cognizant of your time, but I gave kind of the high level elevator pitch. But tell the people, if they don't know who you are, tell the folks who in the world is this Karasevich guy.
I gotta say, first off, nice job on pronouncing the last name. That's always the biggest challenge that everybody has. How do I pronounce the last name? So congrats on that. I'd say, I think you got a lot of it. So content marketing manager over at StreamYard, managing our blog content, our YouTube channel as well. So basically our content strategy. Outside of that, social media manager, digital agency, actually at Social Chefs, my own personal thing. I also run Social Chatter, the longest running live social media marketing news talk show. And as you can see there, the link here, I also have a podcast or actually it's a live show called Launch Your Live. And that's the podcast link. So in a nutshell, that's me.
Yeah. So when do you sleep, right? Because if you're not doing something with the corporate hat on, you've got so many irons in the fire doing your own thing, and I think that's kind of what I want to talk about, right?
Sure.
I want to go into the how, the why, kind of the what, when, where, all of those additives in terms of a content creation journey, and
Okay.
Having so many things going. Let's start there, right? Again, you've got the podcast that you do. Well, you do the video show, and I was fortunate enough to be on the Launch Your Live session not too long ago. But you'll film that, and you have co-hosts, and you bring up with all of the latest news in social media. You take that audio, and then you convert that into a podcast. Talk to us a little bit about what you think. So again, going in terms of strategies and goals for next year.
Sure.
What do you think about workflow for content creators moving into the new year? What should people be doing and focusing on to make sure that they rise above the noise? It's a loaded question, I know.
No. So as you mentioned, doing a lot of different things. One of the biggest challenges is how do you make all that work?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it comes down to systems. So it
Yeah.
comes down to having for example, the podcast, for the most part, I mean, you don't have to do a ton of editing on it. Again, if the system's set up right. So for example, you and I are both gearheads, right? Like we love gear. It's about setting up like, hey, you know what? I've got the mixer. I'm not just trying to, cobble things together. I've got the
Right.
mixer. I record directly into that. And then I easily, I have a file already ready to go with the intro, the outro, and sometimes I have to do editing, but for the most part, I don't have to do a whole lot with that. So I kind of structure the show to make it easier to produce the episodes, and that's between 1 to 2 episodes a week that are going out. So I think systems are going to be key. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a system, by the way, in place, that's where you got to start. And I as you can see, I've got that channel. I've also got I actually have been moving a lot of those videos to my personal channel because again, it comes
Oh,
down to
there
who
was a
you
little,
are,
little,
right?
little shameless plug here for me. Look at that guy with all
Yeah,
the gray hair. Hold on, let me move off of that one. So then you got social chefs,
yeah,
right? So and this is when I was talking about as well, where you've got a lot of content that coming every week.
yeah,
Let's talk about systems though, right? Again,
yeah,
because
sure,
a lot of
yeah,
times the folks will use what's easiest, right? I'm a
hmm
fan of Apple Notes too. Look, it's very easy,
okay,
very straightforward. It comes with everybody's
hmm
phone and those types of things. But being able to record, and I don't want to gloss over this, being able to record
that's fine.
directly into your mixer because again, there's the audio piece right there, already high
hmm
quality, and you can just push
Yeah,
that up to Anchor, Captivate,
yeah,
Libsyn, Buzz, whatever the place may be. So talk
yeah,
to us a little bit about when you split up those two file formats, the MP4 and the
okay.
MOV file, right? Or the MP3 file.
Okay, so for example, the video is multi-streamed out. So for example, it's and I if you go back to like if you go to my personal channel, for example, on YouTube, like you'll see that I have episodes that are streamed out. Like for example, they're structured in a way so that some of them are only going to be like, for example, if we're doing an interview, we're just here on YouTube, and
Hmm.
then I convert that audio file. Like I don't even have to actually strip the audio; it's done in the mixer itself. So I literally record at the same time I'm doing the actual video.
No,
Um, so again, systems. So that way I'm not having to do this. I'm not having to go live. I'm not having to then download the audio and then try and clean up the audio or try to bring up the levels. I'm starting all of that at the same time that I'm doing the one interview.
that's a good point. That's a
So
good point. Yeah.
so I'd say, from that perspective, like, and then I structure it in a way that, okay, so some episodes they go to Amazon, some of them, so they go to Amazon and YouTube, depending on what the episode's about. And then I make sure there are touch points in those episodes to bring them back to the podcast or the show notes or, a product list or things like that, things that are not a heavy lift necessarily.
Right.
It's just part of your run of show. So I'd say, going back to what we were talking about, I mean, it really comes back to having a system. This
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a complicated system.
So this was actually going to be two questions down and two statements down.
Mhm.
You brought it up just now, and I don't want to overlook it. I'll forget because I'm getting old. Adding into your flow and
Uh-huh.
and the importance of something like an Amazon Live, right?
Uh-huh.
Again, it's been around for a little while. Not a lot of folks have actually jumped on board to do it,
No.
unfortunately, because it literally is money that Amazon is giving away, and we shop there anyway.
Yeah.
I've got packages showing up every single day. And
Yeah.
we always are making recommendations, talking amongst ourselves about, you should check this out. You should check this out. Talk to us a little bit about how you're implementing Amazon Live into your workflow.
So basically I have a couple of different things. One is so the reason everybody should be using Amazon Live, by the
Mm,
way, is the fact that when you stream out, if you go out to a YouTube channel and you've got no audience, you and I both know the value is often in the replay, right?
yep.
And a lot of times people, they keep running against the wall. It's like, okay, I'm going to go live on YouTube. I'm going to go live on YouTube. And you're like, well, I only got 3 viewers. I got no viewers. And the thing is, what Amazon does, which is excellent here, is that they get you in front of a person who's already ready to shop, a qualified buyer. They're on Amazon to go make a purchase.
That is true.
And so if you have the right kind of video that you're producing over to Amazon, then you're automatically in front of the customer. And guess what? The videos you should be talking about are the things you're good at. So, for example, I'm literally going to tell you right before we were doing this, I made a video about my phone case because I was like, you know what? I was like, well, what other things do I like? I love tech. You know that I love gadgets,
Yeah.
right? And I love telling people about like why, for example, in this case, this is a Pelican case.
Okay.
It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
why do I buy a Pelican case for my phone? you know, and I'm talking about it from the perspective, like I'm talking about it because it's stuff that I love. I love to talk about, right? And I want to share that knowledge with people. You mentioned that a minute ago. We all talk amongst ourselves
Yeah.
what kind of gear we share. But here's the thing: the great thing about Amazon is that everything on Amazon is, it's somebody who's already looking to buy. And guess what? You like it's like going into a Best Buy or like any of those kinds of stores, right? You're always looking for like somebody who is more knowledgeable about you to that can help you talk about a product or help you learn about a product. Like,
Exactly.
why should they get this
Yeah,
version over
you
that?
walk in already with the intent possibly of buying something. And with Amazon Live, you typically are a subject matter expert because you already
Yeah,
own that case. So you're talking about it. You're using it
exactly.
in your daily life. So that
Exactly.
definitely helps and that makes sense. So I want to give some shouts out here. I see Laura Williams in the building. How are you, Laura? Look, Social Chatter is a great
How
show.
we doing, Laura? Good to see her.
Love it, love it. Oh, KHEA. Yeah, you missed the other session. Go check it out on my channel. I've been streaming all day today. Listen, look, I've
Good.
made a couple of costume changes and everything, but that's all
Yeah.
good.
Oh, good, man. But back to that whole Amazon thing we were talking about. So if you're like, if you're like, hey, you know what, I want to get into doing it, literally, I think your hat says that just start.
Just start.
Because with Amazon, the great thing about it is that you get in front of a person who is already a warm lead, somebody who's
Yeah,
already interested in that product. You don't even have to like seek them out. Amazon will help you and they will put your videos in front of the right people. So
yeah,
then if you're knowledgeable about it, you talk about it, people really kind of, they feel like they connect with you, then Amazon's going to be a great place for you to get started to help you generate some initial income. Now you can take that a step further and you can make what are called shoppable videos on Amazon. And these are basically pre-recorded videos
hmm,
about a product. So for example, I could use this case as an example. I could talk about like, for example, this phone, for example, this case is not very thick. So how does this actually do any sort of protection?
right.
And I talk about like the quality of the product, the case. I talk about what it's made out of. I talk about like, for example, hey, it can support up to 15-foot drop. It's made, it's got some antimicrobial features in the case, things like that, right? So you can talk about again those features and benefits that you are good at. So that's another way you can make a video. So really, James, I think the thing I really like to instill upon people is just the fact that whatever piece of content you're creating, we haven't even gotten to this part yet. You got to squeeze as much juice as you possibly can out of that piece of in this case, that one piece of content that you create, and you can turn it into multiple things. And you want to squeeze as much. And what a lot of people do is this: they do one squeeze, and they're like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm
You're
on to the
done.
next
Yeah.
piece."
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
almost
how you
almost
get.
like you looked at my show notes before we started because that's coming up as well in the discussion. But let me I want to
Yeah,
backtrack
sure.
a little bit because
Yeah.
there are some assumptions that we need to make clear. And unfortunately, and I don't have any insight to this, but right now Amazon Live is only available for iOS users. Right,
It
so
is. Yeah.
the half of the world that is stuck on Android, sorry for that, but come on over to the Apple side so you can take
Mhm.
advantage of sharing your content on Amazon, and the fact that it lives in perpetuity, right? It
Yeah.
is that replay squad, so they'll continue to position whatever you're talking about in front of buyers and shoppers and things like
Yeah.
that. Micro content, that was definitely going to be something next as well. I
Okay.
want to talk micro content, then I want to talk kind of frequency. We
Okay. Sure.
You can't be everywhere, right?
Right.
I can't be on TikTok with the youngsters because I can't understand it.
Okay.
Snapchat, I deleted that app. I don't know what's going on there either.
Okay.
But
There's some cool
again,
stuff going on in Snapchat, but you're right. Yes.
I can't. I can only focus on two things at one time, and not
Okay.
a lot of. But talk to us a little bit about that, right? Because again, you're doing the podcast, you're doing the video cast, you're doing
Hmm.
Amazon Live functionality and features as well. Cutting that up, putting it out as micro content. What is your strategy for that? And are you planning on doing something different for the coming year?
So I think the first thing is making sure, like, just thinking about, like, okay, let me go from the top down. Like, for example, I make a video. Like, I'll use Social Chatter as the example. That is a video that we do each week. And so there's a specific, for example, I use Google Drive basically to, we have a form that we use. Every show is roughly the same. We just bring in the guest. We have some different topics, but I start with the video. Okay. And so that video then becomes a blog post. And that blog post then is, in some cases, it's like the video is actually embedded in that content, but then we also include links back to, like we have show notes, we have links back to the articles and the topics that we were talking about. So we're not just putting out that one video, we're also making sure we put out, a blog post, for example. And that blog post then also becomes an Alexa flash briefing for those of you. Sorry if I set your Alexa off there. But
Let me
for those
see.
of you
Is
who have an
she?
Alexa,
No, okay. I had to make sure of that there because I'm glad I got the headphones in because oh my gosh, you could have set off
yeah,
Alexa and oh geez, and Siri here before we know it. So, go.
you're right. Yeah. I know, right? But so basically, we're distilling that one piece of content. We're taking the video. We now are also making a blog post out of it. We're then, creating smaller pieces of that. That's becoming an Alexa flash briefing.
Mhm.
If I want to turn that into a podcast, how simple is that? I hit start. I either hit record directly on my mixer, or if I don't have a mixer, I can basically strip the audio between the video and the video file. I could basically run that into, if I've got an Apple device or a Mac, I can run that through QuickTime. I can use handbrake.fr. It's a free video tool. I can also just strip out the audio there as well if I want. And now all I have to do is, like I said, do minimal editing on it, put it up into, in this case, a podcast, put it on my favorite podcast hosting company, and they do distribution.
Yeah.
So if you optimize, and again, the name of the game on all of this, really, it's going to come back to like an old tactic, and that's SEO. So like if you're good at search engine optimization and you've heard about it optimizing for articles, the same process applies to podcasts. The same
Yes.
thing applies to video.
Use those keywords, use those catchphrases, all those
Yeah.
search Google trends, do all of that stuff, right? That
Yeah.
you see people are actively engaged and looking at. So that makes
Exactly.
sense. Let me say hello to Mr. Kevin Cox. How are you, sir? I'm glad you were able to join.
Hey, Kevin, how we doing?
Let me ask about frequency though, all right? Again,
Yeah, sure.
because I notice and I know that with Launcher Live, you do that kind of, you pre-schedule, right? I believe when I was
I am, yeah.
scheduled to be on your show, it was like 2 months out. So you've
Mhm.
already got your book of business, or you already have your calendar, your content calendar already laid out.
Yeah.
Now, pushing out all of that content afterwards, do you do an automated utility? Do you use something, I don't know, Hootsuite or Content Studio or Agora Post, or are there? I don't necessarily want to get down into the weeds of that, but again,
Right,
is it
exactly.
more of an automated process or more of a manual activity that you use?
There's a combination. So there is a manual process to it. So for example, every time an episode goes out, like I've got it on the calendar when
Yeah.
the episode's going out, or in this case, I get an email from the podcast host when it actually goes out. And then that's my reminder to, basically what I will do is I will take it and, okay, hey, like I got to, like James, hey, your episode's live. I'm going to make sure I let my guests know. But at the same time, I'm also going to then make sure that I'm putting out some additional messages about that. But I also then want to make sure that I also put it into a bit of an automated system as well. For example, Agora Pulse has a great queuing feature.
Hmm.
So basically, you could set up basically think like this: you set up buckets, and then within each bucket, you set up various times for when you want to actually send that content out. So, for example, if you want to publish, let's say you have 100 podcast episodes, and you want to publish a new episode, twice a day, for example, right? Because again, the life of a tweet is very short, or another social media post.
Correct.
You put your content in there and you just dump it in the bucket. And then what it does is, okay, you know what? At the predetermined time you picked, it will go and it will grab whatever's in the bucket. And then it will put it back at the bottom of the bucket so that as it's recycling it, basically. And then I think that the key thing there, is the only manual part is you have to obviously write all that, write the
Yeah.
tweets.
But again, that's you expect to do that. What I
Yeah.
do like about a lot of these platforms, though, is that
Yeah.
they're not just singular, right? So they have
Mhm.
all the networks across. So you can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Twitter, you can go to
yeah.
Instagram, you can go to all of those platforms for,
Mhm.
and the value and the time saving that you get for something like that is worth the price of the subscription for a lot of people. Man, there's a lot of tools out there, but again, find one that can go out to all the networks that you're on. Again, if you can't be in every place, if you can't be in all the places, be in the places where your community is and push that
Yes.
information out. So, let me ask
That's
you
a-
about. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's an excellent point. Yeah. So it's you don't want to, like, you can't be everywhere.
Mm,
It's like let's just say you're a mirror, like you're holding a mirror, right? And that's like collecting all the light that you want to direct somewhere, right? And it's picking what those channels are. Like you can't, as you mentioned, you can't be on Snapchat and TikTok and all the other platforms at once. Like you can try, but it just, you end up spreading yourself too thin. And so, it's, I do this a lot in a lot of talks. I say like work smarter, not harder at things.
Hmm.
And so it's, like figuring out like, okay, where am I going to get the most like bang for my buck? So for example, a podcast, the hardest part about a podcast is promoting it. Like
Yes.
you have to put,
Yeah.
it's easy to record. The hardest part is driving the audience to it because podcasting, even though it's been around for quite a few years, it's not something that a lot of people have latched onto. And the fact that people aren't driving a lot of places, they're not consuming as much as they were before.
Yeah. Isn't that
So,
crazy? Don't
yeah,
think about that. I mean, and I apologize for interrupting, but
that's true.
podcasts are not new, right? They've been
No.
around forever, and then just social audio, social communication. But
Hmm.
now they're the new
They
it
are, yeah.
thing, right? Because
Hmm.
now the whole world shut down for however much time, and then we
Yeah.
had to find other ways of consuming content because we couldn't go out or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. But the the intrigue and the allure of the audio conversation is definitely back. So again,
Yeah.
focusing on the content creators here, definitely make sure you have that strategy in your toolkit for your plans for 2022. Sorry, go ahead, man. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had
Well,
that.
and by the way, what I want to make sure I add there actually, because you hit on a really good point, which is, we talked about like a video, like I distribute a video out and then I turn it into a podcast, for
Right.
example. But at the same time, this other thing why you set up systems, I also have like my mixer has the ability to set up a Twitter Space audio.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, here's how my show goes. I basically am streaming it out to YouTube. I have a blog post that's going to be going out. I have an Alexa flash briefing, so for people that really want the 2 to 3 minute version of the show, they can listen to that. And then the other thing I do is I also have been streaming it out to Twitter Spaces. So now I'm hitting multiple audiences,
Love it, love it. When
and
they're
it
there as well,
yeah,
when they're there as well. So that's a cool thing. I want to go into
right,
these comments that are coming up from Kevin
yeah, sure,
Cox. It says, sometimes the content that performs on one platform doesn't necessarily perform or translate on all the others.
yeah,
Content for Twitter doesn't always work for like TikTok or Snapchat or
hmm,
LinkedIn. Those are fantastic points. And again, kind of what we
yeah,
were saying here: be where your community and your audience is. Uh,
mhm,
Focus deep on those and realize that you can't always be where everyone is, and it may not resonate. Look, I'm no longer streaming on Twitch because that's
mhm,
just not my audience, my community, my people are not necessarily on Twitch. So why even
right,
waste the cycles of going there and having to curate
mhm,
and manage that
yeah.
platform? Focus on the ones that are actually resonating.
And it's a whole nother thing you have to think about. Like,
Yeah,
as you multi-stream to multiple platforms, yeah, it's easy to stream to Twitch, but then at the same time, it's something you have to think about every time you're going to go do your show.
yeah,
Hey, I'm going to schedule it out to go to your standard Facebook, your LinkedIn's, and oh, hey, I'll throw Twitch in there. Like maybe you throw it in there to see if there's any traction, but it also is like, well, every time I'm scheduling, now I have to remember to schedule to Twitch.
yeah, yeah.
Why have that extra sort of burden in a way
Yeah, and,
when
and
you really could
it
just
splinters the community, and it splinters your message as well, because again, one particular audience expects something different in terms of their
Mhm.
access to you as well, right? So the
Yeah.
communication, the conversations that I have on LinkedIn are different than I have on YouTube, are different than I have on Facebook or whatever the case may be as well. So
Mhm.
those are key points right there. Let me ask you about timing. Let me
Okay.
ask you about frequency, right? Date time considerations, right?
Okay.
You're East Coast. I'm on the left coast. Talk to us a little
Mhm.
bit about, do you stream at 6 a.m. my time, or do you stream at 11 p.m. your time? And taking out the replay squad out of the conversation. But again, how do
Okay.
you go about deciding when's the best time to put your messages out?
So I mean, the bottom line is there's no like exact time of when you need to be streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it though, what you can do is I would suggest testing out some different times. So, for example, Launch Your Live. That's my live show and my podcast. Like I basically started. Initially I was like, oh well, I'll do these in the evening, right? I was trying to like I was trying to think, okay, well, when's the best time to put this out? And I tested some evening times, I tested some afternoon times, and I said, you know what? I'm getting about the same like, response with, in the afternoon consistently versus, oh, I'm doing it in the evening. Oh, chances are people are driving, they're not going to be tuning in at that point. So I tested out a couple of different types of episodes, a couple of different times to see what worked. And so for that, I figured out what that was, and I said, okay, I'm going to stream then, and then I consistently do that, and then I'll reevaluate it in a few months. But then when I go to look at like my social chatter show that I do, that one I said, okay, I'll do it in the morning. I realized that if I want to have a guest on and they're Pacific on West Coast time, I need to be flexible. So I made sure I gave myself a window
Yeah.
of when people could book times. And then, there are times where we are flexible. If the person's like, hey, I need something a little bit later in the day, we'll have a special episode of that. I will say, when you start to stream at a specific time, you do start to build in or get that built-in audience at that specific time. So when you do move the time, it does show.
That could
I've
be
seen
detrimental. Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
yeah, and I'm glad. Let me say why we're live. I'm glad you gave me some flexibility in terms of when I was on your show, because dude, you're 3 hours ahead of me. Or you're three. Yeah, I could not come on at 5 o'clock in the morning just to do your show because I don't know what I'm doing at that time of the day.
And there are people that they won't 8 a.m. for example, even 9 a.m.
I'm
10
up by
a.m.
then.
is
I'm up
too-
by then.
For some people, it's too early. So, but
That's
yeah,
all good.
so there's no specific time of when you really should be streaming. I mean, I think the analytics, the data is going to tell you that. So
That's where I was going to go. That's
Yeah, sure.
specifically it, right? I mean, pulling ourselves out of it, and let me give some shouts out to Mr. Steve Worthy. Thank you for being in the comments too as well. Taking yourself out of the process and really focusing on the needs of the community, right? You may want to stream at 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon, but no one's going to be there. Maybe, right? Your community resonates and your analytics, whatever platform you're using says that they want to be online with you Thursday at 6:30 p.m. That's the time when you should be pushing your show, having your conversations, having your dialogue and things like that. So again, getting out of our own way and realizing that none of this is about us. It really is about serving the community and delivering messages and being kind of a servant of the folks that are paying attention to us. That piece I want to kind of hammer home and let folks know that it's not about us. It really isn't. It's all about the community. It's all about the people that you're engaging with and that you're interacting with. Shouts out to, oh my goodness, FH Umpire. What I called her Humphreys. Oh my gosh, she's gonna kill me. Keely Dunn, how you living? Still thinking it's more important to focus your streams on a single platform if you're interactive at all. Gosh, she's gonna kill. See, I should go put her shirt on. That even sounded weird coming out. I should go put her swag on.
I know what you mean, but yeah, maybe if yours didn't.
I am sporting, some other people in the community, but yeah, oh my God. Keely, I've been streaming all day. I've been streaming all day.
That is a very good point, about, making sure you focus, part of it is making sure that you are broadcasting at the times when your community is there.
Yeah.
And that's super important because here's the thing, what a lot of people, you have to kind of look at who your audience you're trying to reach. For example, if you're streaming to people that are in corporate America, right?
Yeah.
Chances are they're going to be at a 9-to-5 job or something like that. So you're going to have very specific times that you're going to need to stream to reach, if that is your audience. Because again,
that's a good point. But check this out. I've been adding LinkedIn to the repertoire. I've been adding LinkedIn to the schedule. The only thing I don't like about LinkedIn is that I got to dial it down to 1080 by 30, right? But the replay squad within LinkedIn is massive because folks will everyone gets a notification when you're live on LinkedIn. That can be annoying at times, but there is some value in that piece. I wish they would up the rate that you can actually use. I also love the fact that, so talking about different social networks.
I know what you're going to talk about, so go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna talk about another network. So the Twitter thing, you don't know what I'm talking about. So because no one else is talking about this, and I think I'm the only one that's giving them a hard time. Last time I said anything about it, and then Jack Dorsey quit. There's a ton of folks watching this on Twitter right now. I'm looking at the feed right now, but they can't comment. I hate that. All right, because again, that's the conversation piece. That's the engagement. I love that, and I miss that, and thrive off of that. But I wish that some of the Periscope stuff came into the Twitter streaming aspect, and hopefully that comes. But now Dorsey's gone and other people are in charge, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sorry. Go
We'll
ahead.
see. No,
Squirrel.
no. Hopefully they do add that. I mean, I will say
Yeah.
that is a really good thing because that is an important part that we definitely need to make sure we talk about, which is when you're deciding like how thin are you going to spread yourself, and you're on like all these different platforms, you have to also take into consideration some of the nuances of the platform as well. So it's easy if it's on your own channel and you're putting out your own blog content and things like that, you know, that's easy because you can control the touch points. But like in the case of Twitter, if you're like, hey, I want to stream to Twitter, and then you're not able to get the comments, you then also then need to make sure you've built in some time to go back and
Mm,
engage with people
good
as
point.
well.
Yeah.
And and that's the thing. It's not just about like pump content out. It's put a really good piece of content out, break it down into all these different pieces, put them on all the different platforms that where you want to reach your audience, determine how much of that is going to go on this. So you basically, it's not just like, hey, I put it here and then I put the same thing here as well. I have to make sure that I'm constantly varying it. I thought you, by the way, James, were going to say when we were talking about LinkedIn, not just the replay, but the other feature that I think LinkedIn has that I really like is the whole creator mode feature, where
Yes.
you can put your live stream in the actual header. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool
I
if you're
have it.
good
I've never
at
watched
ranking.
it. Right. They
Yeah.
say I have it, but I've never
Cool.
actually looked to see to validate that they turned it on. But yeah, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
it definitely helps with some of the helping drive some of the interest. If for example, if you're getting LinkedIn's insights that they send and say, hey, you know what, you had 300 people view your profile or something like that.
yeah.
Like again, if you're not streaming to LinkedIn, this would be a good reason to potentially start. If you're noticing you have quite a number of people viewing your profile, because they would then be able to see your live
Exactly.
streams that you're doing. So
That's also one reason why I'm watching and make sure I don't see any 4-letter words because we're going to LinkedIn right now. So
yes.
I don't worry about it. So let me ask you about a couple of things. And folks, if you have any questions for Christian, definitely, like I said, put a Q in front of him. He's the subject matter expert. I'm just here heckling from the back of the room. Um, we've mentioned the statement about community a couple of times.
Yep.
Um, Talk to me about what you think about that, right? And building communities. And I'm of one particular mindset. Like I know a couple of folks here, like Keely as well. She has a thriving community that
Hmm.
is like on Discord, on different social networks, things of that nature.
Okay.
Talk to us about your thoughts on either owning your own community, meaning the platform, as opposed to having
Mhm.
it on what I'm gonna call rented ground, like on
Yep.
Facebook or something of that nature. What are your thoughts on that?
So I definitely think that you should own some portion of like your community, whether that is like personally, if you can put it on your own website
Yeah.
or your own platform and you control the experience, I'd say do it. But you have to also look at like how technical you are, how much time do you have, and and that's, I think time's going to be the key thing, because it's easy to set up a community on Facebook. It's harder to set one up on your own website or
Yes.
on
Yes.
another third party tool that's not on a social platform. And then the other thing is, this comes back to just like we talked about with the podcast, you have to drive the traffic back to it. And
Mm,
so if you don't have a community, and this applies to live video as well, if you don't have a community and you're like, I'm going to do live video, it works a lot better when you have a community built in versus you're constantly you're taking like 1 to 2 steps at a time to move up to where you actually are building that community. But if you don't have that, if you have that community, it's a lot easier. You can take 10 steps at a time, and so that, I think that's a really key thing that people need to focus on.
I'm I'm um I'm torn, right?
Okay.
I've said it many times, and I will never get a sponsorship deal from Facebook/Meta. That me I don't know. Me and Zuckerberg just don't get along. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking at pulling a lot of my activity off of that location. I may
Okay.
actually go completely dark come January 1st. So here's a little heads up to everyone watching and listening.
Okay.
Just because, again, there's you don't have any control, you don't have any say, you don't have any real sense of ownership or direction for the folks that you're trying to build relationships with, right? So being able to control it, yeah, I'm probably never going to get any sleep because I'm going to be building an environment and building a platform, but I'm willing to take on that burden to have a much more succinct and more or less noisy from an advertising perspective environment for the community
Mhm.
and giving them explicitly what they want. We'll see if it
Yep.
works out. Let me give it an old college try and see what happens. But I did want to hear your statement and your status on that. Um,
And again, I mean, it's like you have to also look at like where your audience is at. Like every platform wants you to have a community there because they
yes.
want you to keep people on the platform. And the great thing is, like in this case, I would say you don't want to be on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. I mean, if you have the bandwidth to build a community on each one, great. But the hardest part is if you start out on Facebook, and this is like why you should really try. It's like land ownership. You should always try to own something because
Hmm.
if it's Facebook, if it's YouTube, if it's like LinkedIn, you and I we've got this question tons from people. They
Yeah.
want to know like, hey, I have people on Facebook and I want to move them to YouTube. Guess what? It's not that easy. It's not a
It's
push
not going
button.
to happen.
You can't push a button and say,
Yeah.
hey, come on over. You can't make a post and say, hey, come on over because you're fighting the algorithm. But at the same time, the other thing you're also fighting there is, what your user's comfortable with. So change is hard for a lot of people in this case. So if you do it on your own website, if you start off on your own website, it may be a lot of effort at the beginning. It may be a lot of effort, a lot of work. You may not get the lift that you think you should get. But if you start to build that community there, it's a lot easier to keep them there. And then when you start to move and do other things, they're going to follow you versus the other ones. People get, very set in their ways, I guess you could say. So,
You say that, and then I had to open my mouth, and I'm getting all kind of folks saying, maybe I should second guess this whole move off of Facebook. But I don't know. Well, I plan on. Let me think about this, man. This is, but see, so again, these are the questions and the statements that you put out to the community, and if you get the pushback, pull yourself out of it and be a servant to those that are
yep.
following your direction. So. Um, I don't think James Hicks needs to apologize for not getting along with Facebook anymore. We all hate Facebook.
Well, and here's the
What she
thing, like
said.
we talked about YouTube channels, it looks like, so FH Umpires is over there commenting
Yeah,
about,
get the name right. Oh, look, let me tell you something. Get the name right.
I think I got that right, right? But for example, if she's over there building on YouTube, and she's like, hey, I want to promote my YouTube channel into Facebook. Facebook may not like that because, hey, everybody has their own competing product and they want you to keep your audience on their platform.
Yeah.
So,
So here's an interesting example of that, and a lot of folks that are in the comments and probably listening and watching again will understand this. And there's two different trains of thoughts, and this is how Facebook tries to grab you. I'll set a stream up saying it's going to go primarily to YouTube. If I wanted to go to Facebook as well, I have to make a separate event within Facebook, or else it doesn't get as bubbled to the top to everyone that's in
mhm,
my friend
okay.
circle, right? If I just copy the link from YouTube to Facebook, it
Mhm,
doesn't resonate as much within that particular platform.
yep.
I don't like the splintering again, right? I want to focus on where the people are, where the conversations happen, where the messages are, and where the community is being built. And I understand it. Look, we don't pay for Facebook, so they can do whatever they want to. But that's just one of the things again that I kind of loathe about that particular platform. So I don't know. We'll see.
And again, but it comes back to this. It comes back to like, are you at the level to where you want to actually, you can own the real estate? Again, like it's
That's a
you
great
like you
point. That's a
because
great
it does
point.
take time. It takes time, it takes money at that point because, like you said, you're not paying for Facebook. And but the thing is, as you can see, like there's always, if you can own it, you can earn equity in it, for example. But if you're renting from somebody, like you're not like you're never gonna like be able to do anything off of that. Like you're always
Mm.
gonna be paying someone else for it. And so, you kind of have to look at what you can afford. I would say strive for owning versus renting. So renting is going to give you a little easier,
All right, everybody, you
So
got your pen and paper out because Christian's dropping some gems right here. He's getting messing with your stock portfolio. He said, forget about renting, go ahead and get that mortgage. Go ahead and start owning something. I like this. I think that another reason to think about multi-streaming, you segment your viewership and your community can become segmented. That's exactly it, right? You're trying to drive everyone to one particular location or a handful of locations as opposed to splintering them out and trying to be everywhere all the time. And you can't do them all effectively and you can't be great. So Let's
And you
see.
got to look at it like this as well. So chances are, like, if it's the big ones, if it's Facebook, if it's YouTube, if it's LinkedIn, for example, if you're streaming to those places, chances are, like any of those ones you pick, people are already going to have an account there, right? They're going to have a LinkedIn profile, they're going to have a Facebook account, like
Mm.
so. So it makes sense to like just pick one and build on it versus let me try to do all of them, like, and continue to do all of them because to the point that was just made, I mean, you are splintering the audience. And really, I mean, if your content is good and you've noticed there is traction on the right platform, stay on that one platform and build it to a level where then if you're ready to like own your own thing, then you can start to move it into another community. People are going to follow you regardless if the content's good.
Say that one more time. That's pretty good. Say that one more time.
People are going to follow you regardless of whether if the content's
Oh,
good.
geez.
People are going
No,
to.
you flubbed it there,
I
right? That
know,
was going to
right?
be
Ugh,
literally the marketing hook at the end of the show. Go do it one more time, man. I won't look at you. Do it one more time.
people are going to follow you wherever you go if the content's good.
It still
Think I
wasn't
got
all
that
that
right?
great.
Did I
It
get
still
that?
was not. It wasn't
Okay.
all that great.
All right, all right, all right.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask you this question brought in
Yes.
by Keely because you might know more about this being just where you are with the
Mhm.
organization that you work for. Do you guys know the numbers on how Facebook treats events versus posts, which both promote YouTube streams differently? Do you have any
Um,
insight in terms of really how Facebook manages those different types of posts, links, events when we put them on their platform? So again, you're focusing on YouTube, but
yeah.
then you put the link to the YouTube event on Facebook as opposed to creating a separate event within Facebook on your brand page or on your personal profile.
So there's still, I mean, as much as everybody's going to say, well, they don't do it. I mean, chances are they are. Like, they don't want you to promote
Yeah,
people to go
yeah,
off platform. Now, in terms of events and standard post on Facebook, it's a big trade off. Like, the great thing about doing a post is that it's easy, it's not complicated, there's not a lot of extra steps. Versus if you're doing a Facebook event, there are a bunch of extra steps there. But then the other benefit, the other trade off is that let's just say, so James, let's say he saw the event and he said, hey, you know what? I'm going to attend that event. When he did that, his audience is going to see that he's attending an event. So you do have almost like a ripple effect that goes on. So they do require, you do have to put a little bit of extra effort into it, but it does have some additional benefits that that post may not get. For example, if somebody like, if you like a post and, it doesn't mean that everyone's going to see that you like that post if they've not also liked it. So you kind of have to, test out different things there. But I think
yeah.
in terms of YouTube, promoting that on Facebook, I would still try to promote just things that keep them on platform. I'd test it out and see how it impacts your channel because I have a feeling that it does impact it. That if you promote a YouTube link, I don't think they're going to give it as much exposure, as much reach as you'd like it to get.
That makes sense. I mean, let me ask a question that just popped in my head, and it's a selfish question because it's just for me. Your thoughts on cross posting? We're talking about Facebook, cross posting in Facebook. Like, so I don't, and I never have cross posted to various groups within
Okay.
Facebook that I belong to. Right.
Okay.
If you either are a follower, subscriber to my brand page or my personal profile, you saw
Okay.
that I was talking to Christian today. But I belong to a handful of communities as well, and I don't know. I don't feel right posting my stuff somewhere else that I don't own. But give
Okay.
me your thoughts if you have anything in particular about that, and if I know I may be eliminating a handful of folks that may also come and join the streams, but again, I just feel a little different about doing stuff like that. Talk to me.
So I guess I look at it like this: if it's relevant and you're not breaking anyone's rules in their group,
Mm.
then I'd say, okay, you know what? It can help potentially bring you additional people who may not know about you. Because for the most part, like, I mean, let's just say the content was about you, right? And someone else in the group is talking about you, right? Like maybe they're positioning it in the wrong light. And in this way, like it allows you to position it kind of the correct way. But um, what I'd say is this. I think the times that it is useful to promote in the group is they're when you have the ability, like if somebody's doing like a marketing Monday post and they're like, hey, what's your big win for the week? Or there's a, what's your, like when they're kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
asking for that, I think it makes sense to do it from that perspective. But if I'm going to put kind of the whole, I think we call it like spray and pray or something like that, right? It's like, spread it out as many places as you want,
Yeah.
and then pray that people are going to see it.
Man, I can't do it.
Um,
I'm
a lot of
sorry.
people think that, hey, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, no, it really doesn't, because it doesn't look right when it's positioned oftentimes in some of those other platforms. You come across as like, hey, you know what, you're a spammer to a lot of people. They may say, hey, you know what, oh, he's always posting the same thing about this. Like,
Yeah.
just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Oh, there you go again, man. Look,
So
I need to get my sound effects on because
you got some sound
you
bites going on.
coming with
Just
it today.
because
You know, you
can
took the
doesn't
dog
mean
out
you
for a
should.
walk. Now you came back all energized and you're dropping some knowledge on folks. Let me ask you this because I'm gonna keep it going. Well, I got you. You know, before
Okay.
you fall
Sure.
asleep, I'm gonna keep
Good.
asking you questions.
Okay.
Uh, Audio podcast, audio communication, audio social networks. I know you have your podcast as well.
Mhm.
What are you going to do different, if anything, for the coming year? We've done what we've done, and we're doing what we're doing for 2021.
Okay.
Right. This was kind of the year that everyone really paused and kind of reassessed and looked at what they were doing. And again, back to the goal and the mission of this stream was strategies, ideas, and goals for 2022.
Okay.
Right now, specifically about audio, are you going to continue to deliver your content in the same manner? Are you going to look to have different types of distribution? Are you looking at partnering with brands and things like that? What's your strategy from an audio perspective? And then if you want to answer it again as well on the video side.
So I'd love to partner with brands as well, like from from the audio perspective. Would definitely love to do that. I think the one thing I would not do is, if I have something that is working, I would not shy away from doubling down on that if I know it's working. So, if I know, like if I'm seeing podcast traction, for example, the thing I would probably do more of is I would publish more episodes. So, again,
Wait a minute.
like
So you
yeah.
publish. You're already publishing once a week. So what are
Yep.
you what are you going to do?
So,
Publish
so
some
I
more?
so I did well. I did one a week, and I
Right.
actually started over the last like couple months. I started doing two a week, right?
Wow. Okay.
Two different kinds of episodes though. So one was strictly like one, for example, is a straight up audio podcast, right? And then another one is a live video that's, so it's allowing me to test and kind of see what would work, what doesn't work, right? And so I'm doing two kinds of I'm publishing two episodes, maybe even try three. And the other thing I think I'd also do is I would scale back the length of my audio. So for example, you
Good point.
got to think about it like this. If somebody's doing an hour and a half, like let's just say it's an hour and a half, right? And let's say James is going to go out for a walk or a jog or something like that, right? Or are you going to listen for an hour and a half? Probably not. That means, hey, maybe it needs to be 45 minutes at the max, 30 minutes, 15 minutes. Like if you can, again, going back to that whole like squeeze as much juice out of things, right? If you can put a 30-minute episode out there that is just value packed, then it doesn't need to be an hour, right? So it then allows you to, create more content, for example, but more focused content. So, so I would say like what I'm going to do differently would be um, test out publishing 3 episodes a week. Let's see if that's going to work. Can I keep it up, for example? Because sometimes it is a conditioning thing. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Like you want to go run
Look,
a
I'm
marathon.
gonna lay asleep on the floor after we're done because, like I said, I've been streaming all day, man. So
Yeah.
I just don't have it in me anymore. So
So part of it's like seeing, well, what can you actually handle?
yeah,
Because, as we've talked about, like a system is helpful, but you got to make sure that system can scale as well. Because if you're doing everything, then it's a lot, it's a lot of work, to keep that up. So I think the first thing would be I'm gonna do probably try 3 episodes a week. Maybe I'll do that. Like maybe I'll do one extra episode a week and see what kind of numbers bump does that give me.
gotcha. Okay.
Then if it doesn't work, I scale back to 2. So I'm not totally like abandoning the process. I'm pushing on the gas just a little bit to see what's going to work and if it actually is going to pay off with the right, like more downloads, for example, more people talking about it and whatnot.
And as long and I'll put this in, but first I'll say how you doing to Mr. Charles Jackson. Good to have you here, sir. The quality is going to be the most important thing as opposed to the quantity. Right. So yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
we can push, and because I've seen it even here in the comments, we're talking about, the spray and pray kind of thing, and then just putting out a
Mhm.
whole bunch of stuff. But if you can do 3 sessions Heck, if you need 3 sessions a day, as long as they're high quality and as long as they resonate with the messaging
Yep.
and your community, have at it. But if it's just something to fill up the stats and the analytics and
Right.
your page, that stuff is going to get tiresome really quick, and that is definitely
Yep.
not going to be the route to go. So let me see here. Kevin Cox is saying 2 times per week, one is an interview and one solo on topic is fitting the brand. So again, those
Yep.
are the kinds of things right there, right? As long as you're resonating and it makes sense,
Mhm.
right? Not just something to fill space and fill
Yeah.
time. That makes sense. So good stuff. Okay.
And Kevin's point there about like doing an interview and doing a separate type of episode. Again, they're two different types of
Hmm.
like they're two types of episodes. So it's not just, hey, it's me on there just recording an audio version of something, right? I'm also then testing out a different model to see, well, which one works, which one doesn't work. And again, the other big thing I think about a lot of this is you just have to make sure that it still remains fun, that you're
Yes.
doing it, and that, like, what, it's easy to like it's when you start batching the content, it's great, but then you have to make sure that it's still fun for you to continue to want to do 2 to 3 times a week, for
Yeah,
example.
exactly, exactly. I mean, we all have our different goals and in milestones and all, but yeah, we're not going to fire up these lights, press record on these cameras if we didn't enjoy doing what we do. If
Yep.
you are, then you need to have a conversation with someone, because I'll do this. Like I say, I've been streaming all day and I do it because I love it. I love hearing the stories and sharing the information. But
Mhm.
along those lines, let me ask you about, again, the type of content produced, right?
Okay. Yep.
Videos on demand versus live stream. 80% right now of what I do is actually live. And I do that because I love the engagement and the interaction between me and the interviewee, also the audience. And I'm down to see if something breaks in the middle of the stream, right? So I can actually work through it. So I don't shy away from that aspect. So I personally prefer to go live most of the time as opposed to videos on demand. And I know
Mhm.
the YouTube books and the algorithms and the Daryl Eves of the world and the Nimmons of the world will say, do something a little different. But talk to me about your thoughts on that.
So I definitely think that you need to try some different things. I mean, if you're doing, for example, if you're doing live streams and it's not working and you're not getting the numbers, then you need to supplement that with some pre-recorded content, a VOD, And so, like, because again, like, it's that whole thing of, I'm doing the same thing over and over and over. And if it's not getting traction, how do you push it a little bit further? Test out a video on demand. Make sure that video on demand has some sort of call to action, or at least mentions the other stuff that you do. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be know, you don't have to plug it throughout, like, but plug it a handful of times in the video to remind people about it. Because again, like you and I both know, I mean, you're not going to get somebody on the first time that listens to one of your videos or a podcast episode, or reads an article. It's going to take multiple like opportunities to get in front of them, and then eventually it's going to start to stick.
Yes.
And so, I definitely think that that you need to be doing different things, testing out different things. It's not just like, oh, just because everyone else is doing this, it's going to work. Like, it depends on who your audience is, what they're interested in, where they like to spend their time, and so forth.
Look, I'm bucking the trend, right? Because yeah, I'm definitely not doing it by anybody's prescribed methodology for quote unquote growing your channel. I like this statement here as well from Keely. She says, "I think it depends on your goal. Are you aiming to earn 1,000 super fans? Give them a chance to keep up with your content in a way they don't get FOMO, fear of missing out. I
Mhm.
made the mistake last year publishing too often." So again, there's a fantastic point there of understanding that you bring value, right, as the content creator, and you have a message to speak. But if you're oversaturating the market, if you're oversaturating the audience, then it gets redundant. So have them only see you once or twice a week, as opposed to every other hour of the day, kind of thing. But give them kind of that need. It's like a drug dealer thing, right? I keep using this analogy. I probably should stop using this analogy. Give them a little something, let them get hungry for it, and then when they come back, that's when you get the subscriber, you get the super chat, whatever. I
Yeah.
need to stop using that analogy. Sorry.
But again, and that, I mean, that comes back to like the promotional like tactics that people do, which is, if I'm going to put something out on a social platform, I don't have to put the whole thing out. Like this goes back to building community.
Yeah.
I don't have to put the whole thing out there and say, hey, watch it on my Twitter channel, on Twitter, for example. Instead, what I want to do is I put a bite of it out there, and then I drive them back to the full episode, wherever that is that they are going to go watch it, whether that is on YouTube or if it is on a community that I built myself.
Love it. Love it. So we talked about your video, we've talked about your audio, things that you're going to do differently. You've given me some suggestions in terms of actually throwing in some video on them. I've got more boxes here that I need to maybe do an unboxing for or something. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe tonight.
If you need any help with the unboxings, let me know.
Man, let me tell you something. I got some things. I got some things. So yeah, I'll probably do that this weekend.
Nice.
I will definitely do that. Let me ask you and focus on what you're going to do for you in the new year from a content delivery perspective. Are you going to be looking at different means of delivering information? Maybe an ebook, maybe a course, maybe some type of consultancy. I mean, are you going to stretch and probably do something different, or continue to focus on either way, right? Or continue to focus on the path that you're on right now?
Here's the thing. Again, coming back to like the whole, squeeze as much juice from things, like doing an ebook, it's not a heavy lift. The other benefit to something like that would be that could actually show up in search results as well. So if you do a good job with that ebook, it then becomes a place where there are multiple touch points to get them over to other things that you're doing, whether that is one-on-one coaching or a course, for example, other things that I'm already doing, but I need to expand them into the launch or live area. So I would say like definitely I'm going to try the ebook route, but I am going to definitely make sure the coaching aspect is there, and potentially the course. I mean, the great thing about the coaching is that, a lot of people, they want that one-on-one like help. And so the downside of doing courses a lot of times is that courses are something that, like, depending on what you're talking about, it can change like that. Like you get done with it, by the time you edit it, it's old.
Yeah.
And so it can create more work. And so sometimes it is better just to offer, maybe just offer coaching and use the ebook as a means to drive people to other properties, drive them directly to the coaching aspect. That's probably something where I think you'll get the most value. Granted, courses, they can be useful because you don't have to actually, like, you're not teaching, like, there's only so much you can do. So there's only so many,
Nice.
one-on-one
Good
coaching
point.
sessions you can do.
Yes.
So you may want to consider a course. Again, though, I think the big thing with courses is that, again, it also comes down to like how helpful is it going to be for people, because they can generate even more work than they actually are not intended to. So as I mentioned, if something changes, you have people that they will not like, they'll actually reach out to you and say, hey, I don't have this screen. Well, your course, which was supposed to be easier,
Yeah.
now means you need to either go create another one, or you need to step in and help that person even more than you were maybe planning to.
Good point. Good. It's not always greener on the other side, and understand the pros and cons and consequences. But I will add to that we should also not think that we have to do everything by ourselves. Right. Collaboration is key. I think collaboration is a way that we can, again, also get out of our own way. So, if I can partner with you in some of your activities, I would love to do that. And that's just me throwing I'm throwing it out there right now. You don't have to nod or say anything. I'm just recording for the internet right now, but you don't have to say anything. Fight the Fear Show Pressure. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you for joining the stream. We got to talk gear, because that's what we do. All right. Me and Christian get together. We talk. Look, I was going to rap, but no, we got to talk about stuff.
Is the next question going to be like, what camera are you using?
No, see, I hate that question. I don't care.
Okay. Yep.
All right. You're using something and it works for you. That's great. Mixer, light, camera, all that stuff. Everyone says that and asks that. I love everyone that does ask that question, but I'm not going to. I do want to know what may be next for you, though, right? Looking at your studio and what you have right now, again, focusing on what's coming for the next year. How are you planning to level up or grow, expand your particular environment from either hardware, software, or a platform services perspective?
So I think, let's see. So the things I think I need to offer more, I think I actually want to do, like, I want to maybe level up my ATEM Mini. So I think I want to try test out like that. For those, I mean, we're going to geek out on this, but the ATEM Mini
Don't even
Extreme,
say extreme. Oh my God, he's gonna go extreme. If you want
there's
to
some
adopt
features that I
somebody,
like.
let me
Yeah.
send. I'll send you my address or I'll give you
Okay.
my routing number. If you're gonna go with the
Sure.
extreme, okay, do that.
Okay.
Do that.
So I definitely think that I want to incorporate something like that. I definitely think that I also want to test out using multiple cameras. Again, it really sometimes it works. It depends on what you're doing though. Like
Yes.
if you're, if you're doing if you're a maker and you're doing crafts and things like that, then like it makes sense to have multiple camera angles to be able to switch. But if you're doing interviews, like do I necessarily need behind the scenes or a shot behind me? Like not necessarily. It is nice to have pattern interrupt. But that is something that I definitely I want to experiment with
Here's my
more.
pattern interrupt. Yeah,
Yeah.
and see, I've got 5 cameras looking at me, right? And
Yep.
you noticed I'm still focusing on this singular or this same view, right? I haven't brought in any of the other views, but that's a great point. Go ahead, Matt.
So I'd say that. I also think I'm gonna try to use the BitFocus companion app a little bit more. So from a software standpoint, again, that's something that ties into the ATEM Mini a good bit. So I try to focus on that. And then I also, as much as I'm not a tablet fan, I like the idea of tablets.
Yeah.
I just feel like they're kind of hard to like. You can put them into like the workflow, but I kind of have to figure out what that's going to be.
Well, think
definitely
about
would
this.
love
So here you go. I've seen some creators who, because we already talked about Amazon Live, use the tablet for that alternative view or for the comments, right? So as you're doing more of that Amazon Live type of content, have the tablet either running your Amazon Live stream and then have your main streaming system running whatever you're doing going into the community. So that
Yeah.
I actually I thought about that as well. And Daddy almost got himself a new tablet for Christmas. So hopefully none of the kids are listening right now, but there you go. I just sold you a tablet. There you go.
So I'd say like incorporating a tablet in the sense of either making it where you can, this is good. Using a tablet for like whether it is making it part of like your live interactions or using it, even setting up like an alternate camera off of it. Because I think you can actually do that through like the ATEM.
Yes.
So like you can have the phone running, what is it like Filmic Pro or something?
Yeah, Filmic Pro or
'cause I think they'll give you
Epoch Cam is
Yeah.
the one that I use. So yeah, all of those that'll actually do kind of an NDI feed as well. So yep.
Yeah. So being able to have some sort of additional camera, I think would be useful. In terms of, and I think the key thing is like building it out a little bit. Instead of just doing solo shots like we're doing now, how can I make this a little more interactive? I think that's the key thing. But I think it also comes back to what are you producing? So if I'm producing an interview series, I don't necessarily need all those cameras. Again, because the focus should be on the interview. But if I am going to do, move into that Amazon side, the shoppable video side, I want to probably have. I also would say the other thing I think I would add is another like workstation.
Okay.
So like
A dedicated streaming box kind of deal.
No, more like but more like a workstation in the sense that if I'm going to do an unboxing and I'm on a desk, say we're sitting in front of monitors and things like that, having a dedicated place where I can go and make those kinds of videos that resonate for
Got
that
you.
type of audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, I appreciate that. That makes sense. Shouts out to Mr. Bra Balasabas in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, Balasabas is here. There it is. I'm real talk. I'm always again. I'm just controversial. You can't let me out at night, man. Especially if I've had a couple of scotches. You never know what in the world I'm going to say. But thanks for showing up, man. Appreciate you. Mr. Natividad, this is a good man right here. He asked a question. Do you guys pull down older content to replace it with newer or revised content?
Good question.
I'll let you go first. That's a good one. That is a good one.
It's going to come down to analytics.
Yeah.
So if you've got some, like if we're talking YouTube videos, like if it's YouTube video and it's still performing well based on the analytics, then keep it up. But if it's a video that like has been out there for a while, not performing, take it down and then replace it with something that is a better piece of content. So
what I have done, and I'm glad that Rob is here, is I have continually tweaked my environment. I've my thumbnails, my banner art for my channel, and it was literally after a review from Rob telling me that James, your stuff is looking kind of weak right now. So he didn't say it in the exact words, but again, continuing to evolve, right? Don't be static. Changing the descriptions, changing the titles, adding in keywords, adding in things like that, making the thumbnail more relevant, doing some A/B testing, things of that nature. So yeah, Dave, that's kind of the thing to do, right? Always be evolving. Don't be static. Don't be content with what you've got. If the content resonates, like Christian was saying, leave it out there. Maybe cut it up, right? Put it into some of that micro content that we've talked about as well. Push it out to Instagram Reels or TikTok or some of those other platforms as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So you're gonna get an ATEM Mini Extreme.
I think so. Yeah, unless there's something new coming
I'll
out.
send you an affiliate link right now. Is what I'm gonna do.
Again,
I am. Keep talking. I'm gonna pull up my affiliate link right now. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. So when you go buy this thing,
you got it. I would say, yeah, I think that definitely. I mean, again, it's testing out different types of, seeing where you're at and where you kind of want to go. I would say this: if you have a piece of equipment and you're not using it to its fullest potential, then I would say don't buy it until until you really, like we talked about earlier, squeeze as much out of it as possible before you then move on to the next thing. So
sure you don't want the $3,000 one here. The
it's nice. I don't
television
think I have
studio.
room for it though.
Look, oh my gosh! See, here we go. Right, there's only one left. Here we are with the. No, man, I'm not going to do you like that. But that's a very very significant investment there, and
Right.
I could definitely see it within your workflow as well moving forward. So that's cool, man. That's cool. That would, because you focus and you do a lot of, again, the one-on-one interviews and do a lot of tutorials on some of the other streams that you do. So being able to have kind of, maybe if you've got something around your studio that you want to show kind of in hands-on or something, having a different angle, a different point of view, top down,
Yeah.
side, whatever the case may be, I think that would resonate. That would definitely be a nice addition to the Kara Savage Studios. How about that?
Yeah. Well, and again, it also comes down to, you have to man all of this. So
Yeah.
if you're somebody, if you're not a technical person and you're like, oh, I'm going to go get that because, hey, it gives me all this stuff. Like, you kind of got to look at where you're currently at and how much you're going to have to level up to get to that point. So,
Right.
but again, I mean, there's so much gear out there that, again, it doesn't have to be complicated. There's people that are successful with very little gear. So don't fear the gear, and don't be afraid of the equipment, but at the same time, don't let it always also be like, well, hey, I need to get this gear first before I do it. As your hat says, just start. Like,
Well,
start, and then
yeah.
as you get to a certain point, then you can level up to different things based on what you actually need.
Yeah, shouts out to the Hive podcast and this hat here to just start. But I literally wrote down that don't fear the gear. So I got another meeting with with the team over at Press and So tomorrow, and don't be surprised, y'all, if y'all see that on my next T-shirt. I'll send you a finder's fee for
Okay.
the slogan as well. But yeah, don't fear the gear, man. That may be in my email signature as well for the new year. Christian, man, thank you, man. I appreciate you. Again, I wanted to do this. I wanted to have you on the stream to talk about, what it is that you do, what it is that you want to do moving forward. And again, talking to our colleagues, our peers, the folks that are in our environment as well. So about leveling up strategies, best practices, and ideas for content creation in 2022. I like what you have been saying. Don't be afraid of it. Don't fear the gear. Go out and do it. Just press record and make it happen. And there's so many people around. We talked about community a lot, right? There's so many people that are willing to help. So you don't have to be intimidated by any of these tools, processes, or services and things of that nature. So before we go, tell the folks one more time where they can find you to keep up with everything that you're doing.
Well, if you want to learn more about Launcher Live, you can go to launcher.live/podcast. That'll get you to the podcast there. You can basically bring it off to the videos and everything else that's there. If you want to learn about Social Chatter, that's socialchefs.com/blog. And you can check out some of the different shows we have there. And then I'm at CKROKS on just my personal Twitter account. But again, feel free to reach out. And, if you do connect with me, just send me a note and say, hey, you know what? I heard you on James Hicks's show. So that's going to be the best way.
I love it. I love it. I appreciate you, man. Be good to yourself, everyone. I thank you for chiming in. I thank you for joining. You guys have a great night, and I will talk to you next time. We out.